Welcome to our video today. We are going to be re-siliconing a shower that is in one of our HMOs. It's just breaking down a little bit. We want to do a bit of preventative maintenance, so we're going to give it a bit of a scrape out, give it a bit of a clean, silicone it up, try and do the best job as we can. You know, we're landlords, we're just trying to do the best job we can. I'll show you what I do and how I try and achieve the finish that I want, and I'll show you how I do it, how I apply the silicone, what tools I use, what silicone I use, because I think that makes a big difference. What gun I use gives you a bit more control. I will talk you through it in a second. I'll spin the camera around and we will give it a go. So I've just got these couple of bits to try and scrape through the silicone really carefully. I don't want to scratch the shower tray. I'm just using this to break the silicone out. Just going to try and scratch it all out and scratch it off without damaging anything too much. You don't want to scratch the glaze on your shower tray if you can help it. Bearing in mind you are going to re-silicone it also. A little mark here or two won't be the end of the world, but this is pretty good. It's a bit better than a Stanley knife. You can push in, but then the Stanley knife is useful for other bits too. So I'll come back when it's all cleaned out. So we're back and we've scraped out everything we can. It's pretty tricky to get all of the silicone off, but I mean, that's not mold down there, that's actually the gap. So I've taken out everything I can. There is still traces of silicone, but it's all, we're going to be putting a bigger bead on it, so it's all going to get covered, and it's all what I can't get off is what I can't get off, so it must be stuck pretty well. We're just going to go across the back, and then we across the back here and down this side, then we're going to worry about the glass afterwards. We're going to let this go and then we'll come back and do that. What's really important is that you get this raked all out in here, so you get good penetration into the joint and it gives it a good key. So I'll load the silicone up and we'll apply some silicone. I'll show you what I do. So just before you actually get into the siliconing of the tray, what I'd always suggest is making sure everything is as clean as possible. You have got everything out the way. What we do is we use like some sort of big wipe, multi-wipe, some sort of cleaning wipe, something like that to really give it a good clean. And then I just go over it with a damp cloth to make sure any of that solvent or that soapiness is gone, and then just dry it all off again. You want to make sure it's really dry. Make sure you get your bag ready to put any silicone covered tissue in. Make sure you've got some kitchen roll or some blue roll. Make sure it's pretty handy to keep some of those multi-wipe sort of things in case you get something on and that really gets it off. Make sure you've got everything ready. You don't want to be running around when you start getting the silicone into the joint. All cracked. So this is what I mean by ready, guys. We've got our silicone. I always use Dow 785. It seems to go on a lot smoother. I use this type of gun as well. It's a lot more rigid than the skinny like skeleton guns. This bush here means that everything's just a lot smoother when you apply pressure. Plenty of blue roll, soapy water in a spray bottle. We'll show you what we're going to do now. We've got our hand wipes there to get any silicone off. And we've got our profile tools. Now obviously you only need whatever size profile you're going to use, so just match it up with a joint and see what you think is going to look good. Everything's pretty tight all the way around here. There's not any big gaping gaps or anything, so I'm probably going to go with the 6mm on this one. So I'm going to have the 6mm, and then I'm just going to use this square one. I'm just going to keep that handy because, you know, if you get anywhere, it's really handy. Just rather than getting on your fingers, use that to flick it off. Let's go and put some silicone on the joint. So I am doing this one-handed, so we'll try and do as good a job as we can. We'll lay our bead in there. I want to kind of like force it into the joint. That's why the gun is at the angle it is with the nozzle cut. I've just hit the shower glass, so we'll spin around and then we'll force into that joint. Now, I'm not really worried that it's all squidging out a bit too much. I'll show you how I get around that in a minute. Now, this method does use a lot of silicone, but I mean, most of the time, I guess, if you're not a professional and you're doing it, the silicone ends up going in a bin because it all dries off, or the silicone, you use the tube up, so it doesn't really matter too much. Now, we're in the shower tray, so I'm just going to spray a bit of soapy water on my finger. Now, what I've done here is, I said the 6mm joint, this is way bigger than 6mm, and what I'm going to do, I've just put some soapy water on my finger, and I'm just going to run it just a little bit across, just to make sure it's pushed into that joint. Just make sure it's all pushed into that joint. Now, clean my finger off. Now, I'm going to spray some soapy water over it. Now, whatever the soapy water's hit, the silicone won't stick to, so you haven't got to worry about this next bit, where I get my silicone tool, and that's when I start to dress the joint a bit. Now, don't worry about where it goes. You're taking loads off. I know that. It's a bit of a waste, but like I said, we're not too worried about it. And then back the other way. Don't worry about it too much at the minute. Just get it off. So we've taken most of the excess away. We're just going to clean that off. And then we're on our 6mm. We're just going to have a look where we're at. And we're going to go for a really nice tight joint. Pushing the tool in quite hard against the surfaces. Being careful around the grape joint just to put it away a bit. And clean that off there. Now, it's not looking too bad. Obviously we've got spread coming at the top and bottom. So we'll deal with that now. As I said, we're using the 6mm joint, so I've just got my 8mm tool here. And what I'm going to do is, if I put my 8mm in, it's only going to clean off around the edges. It's not going to clean off the actual silicone that I want to leave there. So that's why I'm just going to use this one to take some of that extra off there. Now, this is probably the worst tile to show you on because this is actually ribbed. I don't know if you can see. So it's just a bloody nightmare to get it. But that's where we can use this square one, and I'll just try and, now I'm doing this by eye, just trying to get that silicone out of there. Clean it off. Now, I'm sure somebody's going to tell me that I'm doing it wrong and I'm wasting my time, but like I said earlier, it's just what I do. To do the best job I can with the tools I had at the time given. That's what you've got to remember sometimes, guys. Be amazing to do perfect work, but we do the best we can with the tools and knowledge we have at the time given. So I know I've messed that up a bit, but spray a bit more soapy water. I'm just going to dress that out with my finger across there. So let's have a look, see what we got. That grape joint's a bit messy, so I'll clean it up. Spend a couple of minutes just trying to clean this up the best I can. Now I'm just running down this side joint. Now I haven't quite put enough silicone there, as you can see, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to put a bit more over the top. And like I said, we'll deal with that with our finger and push a bit more in with our profiling tool. Now, with these ribbed tiles, they are really hard. Like, I shouldn't have done this as a video, perhaps, but I guess kind of makes you appreciate how difficult things can be, especially if you're paying somebody else and you think, why did they take so long? Well, if you're trying to get a nice finish, I guess that's how long it's going to take. Now, we've got that big gap down there, so we're probably going to go with the 8mm down here, and I might have to put another 8mm and go over the top of that once it's clean and dry. Let's work it the same. So, another thing to remember is just when you've actually finished using your gun, even for a second, just make sure you click that. Some people think that's just to take the cartridge out, but that just relieves the pressure off the piston and stops squidging at the end when you don't want it to. I'm just going to use a slightly different technique on this one. I'm not really sure what the best thing to do is, so we're going to put in a thinnish bead of silicone, clear silicone, just going to. And I'm using clear because I don't want it to look terrible if I cock it up, but it needs to be sealed because that scrape joint is just cracked, so it's going to cause us some issues. So thin bead all the way down. I'm just going to bit soapy water on my finger, and then I'm just going to push that in because I'm over this really bumpy profile. I'm just going to push that into the joint. Now I put a small bead, it's a really small bead as you can tell, but it means it's not showing up. It's squidging out the side of my finger. Now I'm just going to dress that in with my finger. Just casting my eye over and just checking the joint so we can see through it. We've used the Dow 785 again so it stays really clear. Sometimes the things like the sticks or the crystal might have been a better job for it, but that's what I had with me. Now that is siliconed all the way up. Now you can just see it glistening. Now it looks pretty good. It's not too bad. It's not going to leak. So that wasn't using any profiling tools and the reason I used my finger on this one was just because of these ridges. They're so hard. So just got to kind of think about it and adapt and overcome at the time. So there we go. Fairly happy with this joint. It is a bit wavy just over the grout lines. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a bit more light spray with the soapy water, and then I'm just going to run my finger over it really lightly, and you'll feel all those little tiny bumps, and you can just smooth those out. Make sure you got soapy water on, and then you won't get any stuck to your fingers. So I'm going to call that a job. Oh, once we've sorted that bit out there, I just noticed on the camera things show up, and then we will look at doing the other side at another time. Thanks very much.